come in and make it.
Yeah, I've been. Yeah.
Good to see you. No, you're moving. I didn't see you move fast. Hey, you're the man. Everybody goes.
Yeah. Okay, can I have everyone's attention, please? Due to the nature of this meeting, there are some establishment owners that are currently here and have filled out a speaker card. In respect to that, we are going to allow the property owners to be able to speak first, to defend their licenses or permits, and then we will allow the other people who have filled out a speaker card. And I want to remind everyone that you will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will be very strict on the time. Okay? And when we get to that particular department, I will call your name and allow you a chance to speak, okay? All right, so before we begin tonight's meeting, I will maintain order in this chamber as the presiding official. I am charged with the responsibility of making sure that all business is conducted in a respectful manner. Respect for this legislative body and respect for the mayor. And respect for one another should not only be the goals we strive to attain, but they should be deeply rooted in who we are as elected officials and as citizens of this great city. Let me be perfectly clear. Council, committee, and public hearing meetings will be conducted in an orderly fashion. It is only with proper decorum and respect for everyone that the business of this city can be conducted in a timely manner, with everyone given fair and equal treatment. The following we will be adhered to. The agenda will be followed, and anyone deviating from the agenda without it being properly amended will be called out of order. Do not interrupt the person who has the floor. You are not to speak unless recognized by the presiding official. Outbursts from the public will not be tolerated. You will be called out of order. Any further outbursts will be cause for removal of this chamber. When called upon to address the council, the individual must be recognized by the presiding official, stating your name and where you reside. The use of vulgar language is inappropriate and disrespectful and will not be permitted. Threats and aggressive behavior from anyone in this chamber, either verbal or physical, will result in immediate removal from the chamber. Weapons of any kind are not allowed inside this chamber unless you are a duty commissioned officer. Proof of being on duty and being duly commissioned are required. If you are called out of order, you are to immediately cease your action or your behavior, otherwise you will be asked and be escorted out. A 3-minute rule will be strictly enforced for all who have been granted the floor to speak of the presiding officer. Discussion will remain and be germane to the topic, and only the presiding official is allowed to interrupt the speaker. While in this chamber, I'm asking each and every one of you, of the council and of the public, to respect all of our legislative body and these positions. Nothing less than your full cooperation is acceptable, and nothing more is given than my full commitment to see to it that you abide by these instructions. And I thank you for your cooperation. Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Stringfellow.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
for all.
Thank you.
Amen.
Invocation. Mr. Willard.
Everybody here? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you right now, my Father, just to say thank you. We're coming to you, my Father, for allowing us to see another day, then allowing us to keep your loving arms around us during the day, my Father. We come to you right now, my Father, thank that you give us strength, power, wisdom to take over the city, visit of Crowley. And we also, my Father, I'd like to thank and appreciate everybody in this chamber and wish them a happy holiday season. We come to you right now, my Father, we wish this all in our darling Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Jeff Cadell,
Here.
Ryan Ford,
Here.
Cynthia,
Here.
Lyle Goldman,
Here.
Vernon Martin,
Here.
Stephen Primo,
Here.
Samuel Reggie,
Here.
Kim Stringfellow,
Here.
Byron Williams.
Here.
Thank you, Jim. We will now suspend this current meeting and open public hearings. Mr. Reagan?
we plan to have a public hearing, regarding the, notice of, rules of cause to the Kenneth Kalumia, the Ken Kalumia and Edwina Kalumia, and open successions, Mr. Kalumia. I understand we have, Mr. Glenn Howley was appointed to represent the unopened successions of Mr. Kenneth Kalumia and Edwina Kalumia. And I understand that he was contacted by someone, and I was informed of this, I guess a week or so ago, that we are now being informed that Edwina Kalumia is not deceased, she is in New York. But I don't have an address or any way to contact her.
I believe.
Mr. Glenn.
Turn the mic on.
I got it.
Yeah, Glenn Howley here as the appointed curator for the successions of Kenneth and Edwina Kalumia. Mr. Kalumia is deceased. Edwina is not. I have opened actually a messenger, a Facebook messenger thread with her daughter. I think who lives here in town, and she's going to give me the address for Miss Wilbur. I think she goes by Wilbridge. Albany, New York is the place that I think she may be. I called the number there, and there's no answer today. And, but anyway, her daughter, I believe it's her name, she's going to give me a correct address so you can contact her with the certified mail and all. And so I'll work with you and we'll see how long it takes to get this. I would ask y'all to reset it just as soon as Mr. Reagan thinks that enough time will pass to be able to get certified mail to her. From the contact with Amber, I think it shouldn't take me long at all to get that information. I expect it within a day or two.
With that said, Mr. Howard, I believe it's not, we're not in a position to move forward with this since she's not received notice technically. And, so far as rescheduling, I think we can do it in a month, assuming we're gonna get the information quickly.
I would think so, probably the January meeting without
We'll
problem.
try, I have a resolution that will be brought up later at the meeting, anticipating this, where we can reschedule it, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Next is Melvin Gant and Beatrice Gant's unopened successions. Again, Mr. Howard was appointed as curator to represent the unopened successions of Melvin Gant and Beatrice Gant. We reported that action was taken to condemn the issue of notice of a rule to show cause. And it was taken up last meeting. However, for some reason, that document did not get recorded, it did not reach my office or Mr. Howard's office.
That's correct, Mr. Reagan, I was not served with that one, and, I came to check on that today, I heard, last night was a police jury meeting, and the topic kind of came up with, a gentleman, and he said there were two, and I'm like, oh, I better check and see if someone else is appointed on the other one, it's supposed to be me, and so, just send that as, when at your convenience of the date, and, we can get started on the Gant, matter.
We'll do the same thing, I think we should be able to get that done tonight, we'll be able to set it for January.
I think January will be fine.
Thank you, Sal.
Thank you, Mr. Reagan, Mayor, and council.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, next, proposed ordinance.
Mayor, we have a public hearing tonight on proposed ordinance number 1527. So the ordinance to amend the Indian Act section 2-6, chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Crowley. Redefine the boundaries of the 4 wards of the City of Crowley, which are also designated as voting districts for the dual single-member voting districts of the City of Crowley in accordance with the population established by the 2020 decennial census of the U.S. Census Bureau. To repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances contrary thereto or in conflict therewith. To provide for all matters relative thereto. The boundaries of this, of the districts are shown on the map here, posted on the podium, everyone to see. First to call on those persons wishing to speak in favor of the boundary change, come forward. This is the first call for the proponents of the ordinance. Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward at this time. This is the third and final call. Anyone wish to speak in favor of the ordinance at this time? Does anyone wish to speak for those wishing to speak against the ordinance adoption, please come forward at this time. First call for the opponents. Second call for the opponents. Anyone wish to speak against this, please come forward. Third and final call for the opponents. And there's no one wishing to speak here at this time. Ask the public hearing be closed.
Public hearing is now closed. We will reconvene. We open the current meeting. Next on our agenda is appearances by Ms. Emily Shoma, citizens against life.
This turn. Okay, through today, we have 57 demos. Again, we will not be updating the color levels on the map until we are given the opportunity to verify the accuracy. We have not submitted any more properties for 2 months now. We're waiting on code enforcement to complete the new submission form that will be used for the new governing bodies and CAB as well. We want to be assured that all submitted properties to date, which we believe are 69, are located in the levels that are indicated on our side. Margaret Young will be submitting the 4 weekly properties to code enforcement when they are ready to receive again. 1 property submitted by CAB and accepted by code enforcement as to be condemned on May 17th made its way to the homeowner on November the 8th. The homeowner received the notices of 4 mailings, 2 certified and 2 regular mailings, all on November the 8th, with the wrong address as being condemned and pictures of the right house enclosed. The homeowner was irate and went to City Hall extremely upset that her property was up for condemnation. The response she received as to why was that an organization was pushing code enforcement to clean up the city. The organization was known as CAB, and the person who is forcing CAB is Emily Stoma. She was directed to me as being the person her property was being condemned. Not the fact that it had been burnt for 7 years. There's no windows, no interior to the house. The roof was destroyed. There was no doors, and the walls were filled with bees. About 800 was captured by the bee collector along with the queen bee. The lady called me quite upset and totally informed me that that's what happened. So I met her at her residence. Code enforcement was there, and she was totally misinformed of CAB's mission, which is to duly inform code enforcement of blighted property, but also to aid in situations where people need assistance, not just condemning houses. The issue has been resolved. Long story short, is that I would like to suggest if code enforcement is not comfortable identifying a house that is justly condemned and would like to include CAB as a joint decision maker, to please call me and let me come in and let's do it together in a more professional manner. CAB will stand behind as being the one submitting the suggested blight, which was very obvious and even needed to be, but we will avoid upsetting people when we are also there to help solve problems such as this lady. Her house now has been demoed, and she has been directed on to the next step to solve the problems. CAB has many levels of assistance. We're not there just to demo houses. I spoke to Mr. John Creighton, and it is my understanding that meetings have occurred the last few weeks, and Mr. Creighton will be seated as administrative hearing officer once he's put together his proposed procedures and submitted the same to Mr. Reagan for acceptance and final approval, and then prepared by resolution at some time in the future, if agreed upon. To date, no blight attorney has been accepted. Again, we ask you, Mr. Mayor, to proceed as soon as possible and comply with ordinance number 1516, passed on April 14th, 2021, and have these new blight governing authorities seated so CAB can proceed to work with them and code enforcement for the betterment of our entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is there any agenda amendments? Ms. Stringfellow?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend the agenda to be able to ask, or to discuss the animal shelter. If we could do that on public buildings.
No, ma'am, that would be under committee, and we had plenty of time to discuss that under committee. And that was
Okay.
just a discussion, we're trying to take action tonight.
Okay, I still would like to see if I could amend the agenda to discuss it. Because I spoke to someone last night about that. I just need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Prater. And since you have that, I need a unanimous vote. Mr. Primo?
Yes.
Mr. Cavell?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
Mr. Creighton?
Yes.
Mr. Reggie?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fogelman? I am so sorry. Mr. Fogelman?
As I see.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going around the table and I asked you. Sorry. Okay. All in favor? You all said yes. Thank you. Opposed? There was none. All right, next, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on November 10th, 2021.
Offered.
Offered by Ms. Martin,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Ford. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. Yeah. Yes, we will. All right, we go back and ask to amend the agenda as well, to be able to reschedule those condemnation proceedings, rule of show cause at our next council meeting, which will be January 5th, I'm sorry, 12th. Be January 12th. Offered, okay. well,
Second.
Thank you, and I need a unanimous vote. Mr. Primo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Trinko?
Yes.
Mr. Fogelman?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur?
Yes.
Mr. Prater?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Thank you. And that will be also mentioned in public safety, excuse me. Okay, we'll move on to the mayor's report, the sales tax chart. We're giving you the sales tax chart. We were told by the school board office that we would not be receiving a check for November until December, and we do not have the analysis report as well. So you'll have the month of October is what you're seeing, and as soon as we get those numbers, Ms. Chantel will be glad to update this for you. and email each and every one of you with this information. We're hoping to get it within the next week or so. All right, next is the user fee chart. Let's see. According to November, it was up a little bit, 14%, 14.47 to be exact. And the budget analysis, I'm sorry. The budget analysis as you see it, it's doing pretty good. All right. With that said, we'll open standing committee reports. Mr. Crittenden.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee convened Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers, and the quorum was present. Under action items, a motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderman Court to approve partial payment estimate number 17 to Southern Constructors Incorporated for the citywide drainage improvements project in an amount to be presented by the city engineer at the next regular monthly meeting of the city council on December 8th. The motion carried, and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Crater, seconded by Mr. Wilbridge. Discussion, Mr. Mayor, do you have that amount?
Yes, I do. I emailed everyone this morning with the details. The amount of the partial payment estimate, number 17, is $238,783.11. That's $238,783.11.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
The motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderman Court to approve partial payment estimate number 2 to Glenn Leger Construction LLC for the citywide street improvements contract A project in the amount of $147,721.40. And that motion carried, and I so move.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Crater, seconded by Mr. Martin. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
The motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderman Court to approve change order number 1 to Glenn Leger Construction LLC for the citywide street improvements contract A project in the estimated gross amount of $20,527. That motion carried, and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Crater, seconded by Mr. Woodward. Discussion? Mr. Crater?
Yes, just one question for the engineer. For the contract B, are we gonna also use the flowable fill on that? Or are we gonna have to do another change order, whatever, for the flowable fill?
We're gonna have it in the contract. That's gonna be bid, December 17th is when we're taking bids.
We're gonna have to look at that one.
Yes.
Okay, one more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
A motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderman Court to approve partial payment estimate number 9 to Triton Construction LLC for the city-owned parking lot improvements project, an amount to be presented by the city engineer at the next regular monthly meeting of the city council on December 8th, 2021. That motion carried, and I so move.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Crater, seconded by Mr. Cavell. I'm sorry? No. Oh, yeah. Discussion, also, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, again, I emailed you the details this morning, and then, by the way, I believe a copy of what I emailed to you is in the packet. The total for partial payment estimate number 9 is $486,879.78. That's $486,879.78.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
The motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderman Court to adopt a resolution authorizing the preparation of specifications and authorizing the advertisement for bids and designating the time and place that the bids will be received for the fiscal year 2021, 2022
All in favor? Opposed?
Any discussion?
I'm sorry?
We didn't ask any discussion.
I'm sorry, discussion?
I just
Ms.
had,
Stringfellow?
thank you, Mayor. I just had a question on the date for the bid. Is it December 17th or the other, or?
No, it'll be before the February meeting, that we will need to take action, so it becomes effective March 1st.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion was offered by Alderman Core and seconded by myself to adopt a resolution authorizing another extension of the existing contract with EL Habits Builders Incorporated through August 31st, 2022 for the fiscal year 2021-2022 labor and equipment contract. That motion carried and I so move.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Prater, seconded by Mr. Martin. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Under non-action items, Public Works Director Mr. Albert Young was on vacation and not present to provide the monthly Public Works Department report. The Street Commissioner, Mr. Gilbert Ozane, presented the monthly Street Commissioner's report, and the City Engineer, Mr. Tim Mater, presented the monthly Engineer's report. There was no further business to come before the Public Works Committee, and the committee recessed.
Thank you, Mr. Prater. Next, Fertility Committee, Mr. Martin.
Yes, since I wasn't present at the last meeting due to night procedure, I'd like to go ahead and yield to the vice chair. Alderman Reggie.
The Utility Committee convened Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. in council chambers. A quorum was present. Under action items, the motion was offered by Alderman Cabell and seconded by Alderman Prater to adopt a resolution approving the plans and specifications for authorizing advertisement for bids for the following project: common meter replacement at main pump station. Motion carried and I so moved.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Reggie, seconded by Mr. Cabell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Under non-action items, wastewater superintendent Tim Prater presented the monthly wastewater report. City engineer Tim Mater presented the monthly engineer's report, and there's no further business to come before you till the committee and the committee recess.
Thank you, Mr. Reggie. Next is Recreation Committee, Mr. Primo.
Thank you, Mayor. Recreation Committee convened on Wednesday, December 1st. Under action items, a motion was offered by Alderman Prater and seconded by Alderman Reggie to approve the request of the Acadia Parish Chamber of Commerce for the City of Crowley to co-sponsor the Farmers Appreciation Banquet on January 27, 2022 at the Rice Festival Building, and further to waive the rental fee, but not the cleanup fee. And motion carried and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Primo, seconded by Mr. Fuller. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Next, and this did not go to committee, approval of a resolution renaming the recreational complex to Tony Robichaud Sports Complex. And I would like to offer that resolution.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Offered by Mr. Primo, seconded by Mr. Fogelman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Yes.
I do know that Coach Robichaud's son is in attendance.
Oh, yes?
Right. If
Okay.
you would maybe want to say a word.
Hold up. Hey, Coach Robichaud. Thank you for coming to the meeting, and I just want to let you know that we are very honored to be able to name your father.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. On behalf of our family, this year's, the past 2 years have been an interesting run, and, to come back in the place we were raised and at the recreational department where, his twin brother, cranked everything up, and it said to come back and
recreation. Under non-action items, Recreation Director Peter Kirsch presented his monthly Recreation Department report. Tim Mater, City Engineer, presented the monthly Engineers Report. There was no further business to come before the Recreation Committee, and the committee recessed.
Thank you, Mr. Primo. Next, zoning and annexation, Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. Zoning and Annexation Committee convened Wednesday, December the 1st, 4 p.m. in council chambers. A quorum was not present. There were no action items to be had, and there were no non-action items that were brought up. Given the fact, the committee recessed.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Next is, public safety, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Safety Committee convened Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. in council chambers. Our quorum was present. Under action items, a motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderwoman Kim Stringfellow to approve the applications for renewal listed below and further to exclude from the list of applicants of concern, namely Fat Boys Incorporated, K&L Grocery, Clarky's Food Mart, and City Bar of Crowley. The motion carried, and I so move.
Second.
They offered by Mr. Ford, seconded by Ms. Stringfellow. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we have to separate.
Yes. Point of order, Mayor.
What is your point?
Well, I'm trying to understand what the vote is. Is this to accept this?
Is to accept it as it was a committee,
Okay,
to accept it as it was a committee, to separate it. Now we're going to vote in the separation, meaning that we're gonna vote right now, coming up on all of these in global, the ones that are listed, and then we'll move to the next one after we vote for that.
so basically right now what we are doing is that we are voting for the ones that have been accepted, correct?
Yes, sir. On this.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that.
Yes, sir. Make a motion, Mr. Colbert,
Yes, I did move.
and that's to accept all of the ones that are listed, and you have it in your packet.
Except for the four.
That's correct, that is correct. All in favor, discussion? Mr. Craver?
Yes, as most of you are aware, I tried to put a stipulation that we approve some of these applications on a probational period, and we couldn't do that, but at the very least, whether or not they're approved or disapproved, I would like the Public Safety Committee to come back in 6 months with a report on all of them, not just the four, but I'd like to see all of them again and see if we, if there's any improvements or if there's any problems or anything, because I think a year is way too long to let this go. So that would be my recommendation, that the Public Safety Committee come back in 6 months and get the chief to give us a report like he did this time on all of these establishments.
But just make that perfectly clear, and if he's requesting that, that's fine. But at any time, the council can request that information at any given time. Ms. Corder?
And Mayor, and Mr. President, I was gonna ask Chief, on a monthly basis, as part of his, report, to give, the Public Safety Committee an update on any citations violations that have occurred at these establishments, to where we are, not waiting 6 months, but monitoring them on a monthly basis. All of that.
All of them,
Yes. If that's not too much of a burden, Chief.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
All right, no further discussion, and then this is in global, correct?
Right.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Next, a motion was offered by Alderwoman Stringfellow to recommend approval of Fat Boys Incorporated to go to the full council for consideration. The motion failed for a lack of second. Next, the motion was offered by Alderwoman Kim Stringfellow and seconded by myself to deny the recommendation to the full council of the application of Fat Boys Incorporated for renewal licenses for 2022 for Class B packaged beer and Class B packaged liquor. The motion carried, and I so move.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Cord, seconded by Ms. Stringfellow. And if you'll look at your actual packet that you have for your agenda, and it does have, and it shows consideration of recommendation of the Public Safety Committee for denial of the application of Fat Boys Incorporated for renewal of licenses for 2022 for Class B packaged beer and Class B packaged liquor. Again, remember the word in there is denial. So if you're voting for the denial, that means you are not approving his license. If you vote against the denial, that means you are approving his permit. I'm looking at, hang on one second. So you made a motion, and it was seconded by Ms. Stringfellow. Discussion.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Martin.
Okay, we have people that's in the audience. Okay, why are we bringing this up now before we hear from the people in the audience?
We're gonna give them a chance to speak, the owner of the property.
Thank you.
Yeah, but basically, you're asking us to give an up or down vote before we hear any type of consideration.
No, sir, I'm not. It's a discussion right now, and you're allowed to discuss. Okay. Anybody? Ms. Stringfellow?
Thank you, Mayor, and I would just like to clarify that the public is welcome to discuss. I mean, that's Robert's Rules of Order. When we say discussion, that includes the audience.
Well, the public is allowed to discuss as long as they fill out a speaker card, and that's what I have in my possession, and that's what I'm getting ready to let them speak. So, if there's any, Mr. Craven?
Yes, this is for the chief, I guess. Wasn't there a problem with this application, on Fat Boys? Was this one of them that had the problem?
Yes, this one we discovered,
Tell us about that, please.
yes, they answered erroneously on one of the questions in the application as to the hiring or employment of anyone with a felony. They said, no, we have evidence to the contrary.
So,
Mr. Craven?
yeah, so how does this affect us voting to approve this if they falsify their application? I don't understand. So maybe this is a legal problem for Tom, please? Could you,
Well, you're acting in your administrative capacity as an application before you at this time. So this board now acts as the administrative body. The clerk functions as the administrative arm of this body, to issue those licenses, but you must authorize the license. So without the chief's favorable recommendation, in this case, since we've now discovered an error, that the record was actually falsified, that presents a legal problem for them because that's a falsification of a public record. That is a crime in itself. That's another issue for the chief to pursue later, but at this time, that in itself precludes this establishment from getting a license if you so desire. It is within your discretion to so rule that they are not fit to have a license.
Does that answer your question? Mr. Bedell?
So I think, frankly, Chief, at this time, do you rescind your recommendation for Fat Boys?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin?
Okay, and I'm just asking a question here. Sometimes, we do things without anticipation. And I'm pretty sure, and I'm just speaking on general purpose. I don't think anybody goes out and say that they're gonna hire a felon. Okay, I don't think that's, a true, to be even stated. For the simple reason, COVID came along and Chief, I know y'all were busy, everybody is busy. And the strange part about it is, they couldn't find workers anyway. So, I mean, I'm not, trying to reinvent the wheel here, but I think, some type of consideration needs to be put forth. Giving these establishments a chance to identify some of their mistakes and ask the questions. I just mean, I wasn't here for much of the, I wasn't here for a committee meeting. But, to me, it puts a burden on the judicial, part of our, government, where you're asking the chief
he have no point but to deny because that's his position, okay? But when you check a box, you know, that's something right there, and I hate to put it that way, but, this way, but when you check a box, sometimes you check a box just to move on. But I just wanna make it clear to everybody here, I don't think anybody here that has a business, would intentionally check the box, I won't hire a convicted felon, because you don't know, if a person come up to you and tell you, yeah, I done my time and whatever, you know, there's a second chance thing that goes around and comes around. So if we're using just that, checkable box, okay, I think we need to be more appreciative of it being establishment, not just this one, it could be any one, I just don't want to single out one. It's a tax-paying base. It's a tax-paying base. So I think a little compassion here would be nice. I understand the legal side, I do, don't get me wrong, okay? But at the end of the day, Tom, with the statement that you made, or that it itself falls into as, well, breaking the law, I won't use your word, breaking the law. I just wanted to point that out, you know, because I think we're basically throwing everything on one man's shoulder here. I think, and my point of interest is this, I'm thinking we are putting the cart before the horse, because nobody had a chance yet to get up here and give some type of, well, knowledge of what the plans are, to be asked questions by this council. So, I mean, we need to be a little bit more assertive into this, and that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd just like to point out, that wasn't the only reason. There were numerous complaints and problems, concern at that location as well, steps well. Like as you mentioned, that was the only problem with that application.
Right, but it made it look like that's the only thing.
Let me clarify this though. The chief function, just as it is the city inspector's function and the clerk's function, only to make a recommendation regarding the accuracy of the records that they're being submitted. But the chief has said they have evidence that the record that was submitted, that this person did not have a criminal record, was inaccurate. Now, that bears further investigation, is what I said. I said that's something that's a matter for the chief to take up at a later date. The question is here, as the chief has now withdrawn his recommendation, a favorable recommendation. Again, the approval of the license is made by this board. It's administrative capacity. So what you said, Vernon, is correct, sir, that this board can consider that, but that's not the only thing it can consider. The fact that there are other issues certainly bears on the issue of whether or not you wish to issue this license. So, but that is a material one. If the chief had enough time to certify that there's evidence of it, he would then be looking at violation, multiple violations. Well, I don't know that we have that at this point. If that's been, he says they have evidence of it. He didn't say that they found actual proof, but there appears to be worthy of consideration to withdraw his recommendation. So that's what he's doing right now. He withdrew the recommendation, but it's still your responsibility in your administrative capacity to approve or deny the application.
Legislative responsibility. Yes, sir. Ms. Springfellow?
Thank you, Mayor. And I would just like to say, I read over many reports between last week and this week, and this particular person has been working there since 2015. And it certainly, I think the major onus is on the chief to let us know what's going on with these establishments. It's not our, we don't have time nor the resources to do this. But once we are made aware of things, we have to take that into consideration, certainly. And I would just like to ask, is anyone here from that establishment? Okay, I just wanted to, thank you.
One more.
Mr. Craig? Yeah.
And just to clarify that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we deny any anytime and reapply, and then come back before us for approval. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
All right, since there's no further discussion, I'm going to ask if there is anyone representing Fat Boys Incorporated in the audience at this time. If there is no one, all right, next I'm gonna move that we listen to, at this time, we'll vote on this particular item, and then before we consider the next one, I'm gonna allow the people who fill out speaker cards to be able to speak. Okay? All right. Now, all right. Mr.
Could you
Cooper?
read what you voted on since it's an actual and negative?
Yes, if it's a denial, you're considering a denial. If you vote for the denial, that means he is denied his permit. If you vote against it, that means you are allowing his permit. Or the recommendation. Okay. All right? Okay. So, I guess might look again.
All in favor?
Do it all. Yes, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Jeff Lavelle,
Yes.
Brad Ford,
Yes.
Nick Brader,
Yes.
Lyle Bowman,
Yes.
Vernon Morton.
Just, I got one more question, if I may. So voting,
Voting yes will deny his permit.
Recommendation to deny, the recommendation is to deny the permit, so you're voting in favor of that resolution.
I'm gonna vote no on that.
Okay.
Samuel Reggie. Oh, Stephen Primo,
Yes.
Samuel Reggie. Kim Stringfellow,
Yes.
and Byron Wilmer.
No.
Two noes, one abstains.
6 yeses, 2 noes, and one person abstaining. I'd like the record to show that Mr. Reggie did abstain. The recommendation for denial has passed. Next, is there anybody here, hope I'm saying this correct, Dan Kruger? Mr. Kruger? You are the owner of Corky Street Mart, is that correct?
Corky Street, correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Yes.
So you're more than welcome to speak, sir, you got 3 minutes.
I just found out this information from the Post Signal, which is kind of the most hardest way to find out something. I went as far as saying it's slander. Nobody asked for any information. I did get some response, as stating as complaints or police calls or things like that. Most of these calls are from the adjacent property. The previous owner owned the property, the trailer park. It was connected probably for about 25 years. When I purchased it, I did not buy the property. It's pretty well known that I don't own it. I have a lot of problems next door. I've been in contact with a city hall. I have an easement that's needed to get to this trailer, so I got a lot of drug trafficking. Last week, or week before, they were doing something in the trailer and it burned down. There's no more trailers, they're all gone. I've asked September, I got very frustrated. I'm having this problem for about 15 years. Trash dumped there, it's an eyesore. The next thing with the trash is the stadium. I volunteered to clean up near the stop sign. Football games, things like that. The inmates come and clean it the day before, but sometimes when the wind blows, it blows up on my property. I volunteered for that. I don't really clean across the street or anything like that on the trash problem. Another big thing some of the councilmen were not aware of, during the COVID, I don't have enough space to stand and wait for orders. Approximately 90% of my business is on food orders, groceries, but some are takeout orders. They're all told to wait in the cars. If they do have cars, now some don't have cars, they'll wait outside and they'll wait for the phone to call and they can come pick up their order. This happened a lot last year regarding There might be some things on beer and stuff, I do have sign, no drinking beer or anything like that, but they go to the next door and they do a little damage. I heard about eating, using the restroom on the side of the building. I have equipment back there and it's the same problem. It wrecks my equipment, on that, and I do catch people on there, and I do remove them from the property. As far as police calls, I do get permission for the police. The street on that, on Northwestern, is one way. It has a divider in there. If they pull somebody over, I welcome, they can park there, they can get the ticket, they go through. A lot of this goes on to my record stating that it's at Corky School Mart. Arrests, traffic stops, things like that. Some of them are at night, I close at 10, 11 o'clock, some are done at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not discouraging that, he can use the property all he wants, but it gets down onto my file as a complaint. Some of these things on my file, I believe I called the police one time last month, probably a total of 12 times. Some of these things, as far as, they'll say monetary, I'm required by the bank to call and make these reports. I can't, I feel like I'm getting a little bit wrong. These are complaints, they're not complaints. I have to log it in. I do have to call the police when there's counterfeit money. Fighting, there has been some fights, mostly girls, on that. I mean, it's, as far as guns, knock on wood, I've had any gun complaints, no robberies, no nothing.
Mr. Kruger, I apologize.
Sure.
I apologize. Thank you for speaking.
All right.
Can I ask him a question?
Sure, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger.
Yes.
I saw something today, I think it was in an email, that you have a no watering sign that you're putting in, is that correct?
We have one already, yes, been there for about, I would believe maybe 10 years. We had an accident at the front of the building, somebody drove through it, and we put brand new ones on it.
And you said no one has told you what's expected of you, like from the city, or has the police actually ever, showed you the
I do
ordinance or
work
anything?
with police. It's a shortage of labor. I understand that the police department's actually cut in half, and I'm here to work with them. I do not call in shoplifting. As far as Walmart will put in 900 calls the whole year. It'll be more of a family type thing. If I see a boy or something like that, I know his parents, I'll talk to his parents about it. It doesn't seem to be, I don't really need police intervention to that point of it.
No, I mean, do they ever come to your establishment and tell you like what is expected?
I have not had any meetings, and I'm probably gonna start coming here a little bit more.
We would love for you to.
I do want to remodel, but I got this sore on the side of the building. He offered to me to buy it, it's like $75,000. It's probably worth maybe $6. So they'll just still pay something like that for a burned out building.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming tonight.
I'm here to listen, what makes the city a little bit better.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Kruger, another thing is the on-site alcohol consumption in the parking lot. I've got a major concern with that. That's been ongoing every weekend. How do you handle that situation, or how do you plan to mitigate that? Because
Good question.
your license doesn't allow on-premise consumption, and it's
I think
occurring.
the police, what it is because of the shortage, the threat of them coming and giving them a ticket, they're not gonna go to jail, obviously. But if I work with the police department, which I had, I think they hesitate to come to the neighborhood and give tickets. It makes a bad image. I've been telling them, look, the police are coming, they're coming back, I can't have you drinking, they will leave on that particular, so I've had one person 3 times, I'm probably gonna have to kick them off, but they just don't listen.
And I can tell you, that's one of the major concerns, is that is a constant occurrence. I've observed myself, and, but it's up to you. I mean, the police can certainly come and call, but, and I guess that's why it falls in this body when you have disorderly conduct, people out in the parking lot playing music and drinking, it becomes a citywide problem.
Of course.
And, unfortunately, the burden is on this council to make that decision, to alleviate what can be done. Certainly, we want to work with you, we want you to work with the police
It could be, to answer your question, it could be as simple as maybe 5 troublemakers. The rest of them respect the business, and there are people that have been there for 20, before I even had the store. I had it for 15 years. They grew up in that neighborhood. There are some that do need extra to get off the land, or it's, I wouldn't say major problems or anything like that, but they kind of like they don't listen to authority too much.
Yes, I could appreciate that. Chief,
I just wanted to make note that, Mr. Kruger and Captain Aber and I did have a meeting, about this issue, of which I notified all the council via email, that we have spoken about that. We're gonna take a look at those signs, make sure they're prevalent enough, but he's willing to do whatever he needs to. And, you know, we offer him whatever assistance we possibly can give. You know, all he's gotta do is call and say, hey.
yes, because, you know, the issue here is either, you know, if the police department can assist and alleviate this issue, great. But again, you know, it falls on this council to deny or recommend denial of your permit if that doesn't get fixed, if you will. So we really need to work, toward alleviating the issue, because as I mentioned, if you are approved, for instance, or you apply, if you're denied, and it's gonna be looked over monthly, so it's not just tonight, we need to move forward with any plan of action that we decide to come up with.
I will say though, he assured both Captain Aber and I that he's willing to do whatever he needs. I mean, he wants to, you know, he gave us that assurance, so I'm comfortable with that.
Any other questions, Mr. Kruger? Stringfellow?
I just wanna, I just have another statement. Chief, you just spoke to him, and this is something that, actually, we probably should have looked closer into these establishments, this board should have, but we were, taking it on faith from you, and, you really probably need to be out there more in the community and all of these, 48, and discuss, you know, what's expected of them and just bring them the ordinance, and, you know, let them know that, you know, unfortunately, like I said, we should have looked closer at all of these establishments. This is our 3rd year, we're ending our 3rd year, but we just took it on faith from you. So, that needs to be tightened up a little bit from your department.
Well, and I would say that if we're gonna go there, that would be great. When I've got 2 people on shift like I do tonight, that's a little difficult. And of course, the captains and myself do make periodic visits. We visit with them when they come in as well. You know, when there's 2 officers on the road, that's difficult to do, Madam Alderwoman.
Okay. We move on. Mr. Martin?
Okay, once again, we thank you for, you know, this analysis of what your plans are. As a legislative body, we are the government, quote unquote. We're the lawmakers, okay? The chief, judiciary, he handles all police, whatever. Alderwoman Stringfellow, you had made a statement, which is a true statement. We gotta depend on him for whatever, okay? But the bottom line is, you just use the term, it's your third year, as I say. The problem that I'm seeing here, and just as my opinion, is numbers and production. He just stated that he have 2 officers on duty as we speak right now. As we hear today, you have 2 officers on duty. The city has grown. We've got a park that's bringing in people every day, or whatever it may be. I think one of the solutions, because I want to make it clear to everybody, Vernon said would never vote against jobs. I would never vote against jobs. And that's just me. Because I believe that the only way things are going to happen is that you got to have workers to make it happen. But this body, we're listening, that's why I'm kind of confused here. why didn't we have everybody talk first and then render our vote or what have you? Now, I'm kind of confused, but maybe just, y'all may not be. But I always say, if you're gonna, either accept or deny something, you wanna hear reasons on both sides, the pros and cons of it, okay? Now, Fat Boys had a chance to come up here, no one's here. From what I'm seeing, there's no one here. Okay? We just have a gentleman up here that's, giving a synopsis of what he's planning on doing. And heads went from no, you know, some going up and down and some okay. But at the end of the day, this man right here can only do work with what he has. So I made the motion a while back that we extend our police force to double. If y'all remember, I brought that up. And the reason why I said that, because it's more responsibility right now. Okay? You know, I think we've been having that slot of 30, I think which is 32 officers or what have you, since I've been on the council. And this city has grown. We had annexed North Crowley, we got a new subdivision, shopping center coming up. And once again, people coming into the parks right and left. Okay? So I think if we gonna be a judiciary type source, and that's coming through you, judiciary, and a legislative type source, before we pass it on to the administrative type source, we need to understand where we're at right now. And from what everybody's saying here, things are happening on the parking lots. Okay? Let's try and come up with a solution to end it. Give everybody a fair chance to set forward their plans and whatever they're planning on doing. And I think this council has a judiciary responsibility to give police department what it needs to enforce the city of Crowley as far as the laws. So that way, if we decide to give an up or down vote on these licenses tonight, we have people there to basically make sure that things are going right. I just want to make that clear to everybody.
All right, one more. Go ahead.
I do want to make a point because I actually live 3 blocks from the store. And I've been there 18 years. And what I see today is what I've seen every day, pretty much for 18 years. People hanging out, regardless of signs. You know, you kind of, I'd actually like to go to it, but I'll be honest, I do feel a little uneasy about doing so. I see the police patrolling, and I asked a while back, how many times has police stopped and cited people for open containers? I don't get an answer. And with all due respect, Mr. Martin, we as a board have granted the police department with the largest budget ever this city has given them, ever, and actually the city has actually decreased in population. And so they have less actual places for people to actually okay? This isn't a one-time problem. This has been going on. We all know it. We spoke about the GPS track that would take us off anybody off the highway to the new baseball fields, go down west northern, and then have to take a left on Western, and oh my God, you're gonna see dilapidated buildings. But also, what do you have to see? A bunch of people hanging out drinking. That's not a sight we see if you're a mother with kids in the back seat either. Okay? I do hope it gets cleaned up. You know? And Chief, I do hope that you stick to whatever is necessary. And also, I want to remind everybody, it is the chief's responsibility for hiring any officers. It's not ours. We gave him an opportunity to do with the funds necessary. He has to hire. That's his job. That's what he, wanted to be elected to do. So it does fall on his shoulders. And despite the complaints, the calls, and let's not kid ourselves, we wouldn't be here discussing this if the board didn't start questioning what he'd already approved. Even Fat Boys, he had approved. It wasn't until after the fact that it was simply caught that the application had a no when it should have been a yes. So that's why even mentioned last month, we need to not overstep the chief. No, it's a good thing we are, and taking a closer look at what actually is going on for the sake of public safety in the city. I want you to succeed. In fact, I think you'd actually succeed better if things were cleaned up a little bit more.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Why can't I get the property next door condemned? It takes 10 years to get, the house next door is beautiful, but it takes more than 10 years.
We
And
agree.
I had to get an easement to buy the property. And so all this junk's coming through there. I have other investment. I'm not really from Crowley. I live in California. I have investments in Alabama. I can't put any more money into things get solved over here. I'd love to put $100,000 when you drive through there and everything's fixed up. But there's gotta be some kind of things going on in the city.
I'm not disagreeing with you saying.
And if you wanna hear from a business owner,
And the
that's
place,
from outside the
and
city.
the place is, I mean, the process is in place for condemnations. But on a daily operation of daily operations, there are those hanging out. And, you know, doing nothing but drinking in your parking lot, or in that parking lot. That to me is the problem. That to me is what we're here to decide at this moment, because that is the violation that is occurring, that's attached to your license. We can approach the condemnation of properties when that comes up in a different subject matter, but the actual subject matter here is that your license, by its nature, is a non-consumption on premises, and that's what's being done, and that's what concerns us. We don't wanna have to do this, but we'd be derelict in our duties if we didn't look into it. That's all.
Okay, now we're gonna move on, we'll allow the other people who, fill out cards to be able to speak. Mr. Chris George.
Good evening, my name is Christopher George. Thank y'all for letting me speak again. I'm just here to be brief. I've seen a lot of misinformation online, and I believe like transparency is key. So rather than information y'all have as council members, I believe the city of Crowley, the citizens should get it also so they can understand more about the decisions that y'all make on behalf of the city. So I believe transparency is key. I also believe what I was calling facts over feelings. I live by that, facts over feelings, so whatever facts you have, go for that. I think change is difficult, but I believe sometimes it's necessary. So I'm very unbiased in y'all, whatever y'all decision y'all make. So I have to trust that you are making the right decision. So you are making the right decision for the city of Crowley. So Mr. Reggie, Mr. Crater, Mr. Rivers, Mr. Martin, Mr. Fogelman, Mr. Stringfield, Mr. Ford, Mr. Bell, and Mr. Primo, I trust that you are making the right decision for the city of Crowley and the citizens of Crowley. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. George. Next is Mr. Rick Billyman.
Rick Goes, I live at 515 East Jeanette. Kind of like what Mr. George touched on, I'll also be brief as possible. I don't have a dog in this fight, okay? I don't go to bars, I seldom drink, I don't have a dog in this fight. But my issue with this is the fact that this council is holding these businesses responsible for actions without a criteria set forth that they knew they had to abide by. Now, I know, as long as they're law abiding and they know it's causing disturbances. What's a disturbance? What's a call? Like it was said earlier, Walmart gets a multitude of calls for shoplifting, for theft, for whatever. If one of those calls is a weapons on premises, do we pull the liquor license from Walmart? No. No, of course not. But criteria needs to be set for these businesses to know what's going to be held against them in the future, or what you're holding against them now. Because if you're saying people hanging out in the parking lot, and you go to ShopRite, there's people hanging out in the parking lot. You go to any business, people hanging out in the parking lot. You go to any restaurant, go to PJ's, go to McDonald's, people hanging out in the parking lot. You can't use that as a criteria. You have to set forth, this board, this council, has to set forth the criteria that these businesses know that they should follow. In the future, they don't follow them, man, you put it down on paper. You hold it right up there to them, and you didn't follow these procedures. You're done. But at this point right now, you cannot hold these businesses responsible for criteria that you're making up on the fly. Thank you.
Next order, please. Ms. Monica Nabru.
Yeah, I had a question.
Ms.
Yes, my
Monica.
name is Monica Malbrough. I'm up here representing, the bar. Oh, I'm not for court.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, now, next is number 3.
Well, we have to vote on this one, don't we?
We didn't consider it yet. We didn't make a motion yet.
Yeah, we did.
Before we go, allow Mr. Clerk to speak first. Before
No,
we
we did.
go ahead.
I said we did.
We did not.
Oh,
We did not.
okay.
Allow the people to speak before we move on.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that the liquor license for Corky's be issued.
Hold on. Mr. Court, read number 3, and then we'll vote on it.
Sure. A motion was offered by Alderwoman Stringfellow and seconded by myself to deny the recommendation to the full council of the application of Corky's for renewal licenses for 2022 for Class B packaged beer and Class B packaged liquor. The motion carried and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Court. Offered by Mr. Court.
Mayor, I'd like to offer an amended motion since that one failed.
Okay.
And I would like to move to approve this applicant for renewal.
Second. Offered, the amended motion is offered by Mr. Court, seconded by Mr. Prater. Discussion? Mr. Martin?
Which one is that?
This would be Corky's.
Court is number 3.
Yeah, just,
And now this is for an amended motion for approval.
And we're in discussion.
Any discussion? No further discussion?
I would just like to point out that, I appreciate, Ms. Crew for being here, to speak on behalf of his establishment and his, plan of action. And that we certainly want to work with those businesses that, want to comply with our ordinances and state law, according to the permit. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Martin?
yeah, without, getting into too many details with it. If y'all remember a while back, I had, made a motion, and I'm glad Rick came up and, identified it again. The motion I had made a while back, if y'all remember, is that every year, when they come up for renewal, we bring the owners of the licenses in front of us. Okay? Because basically what just happened, truth came to the center. We holding them responsible for the end of the cookout, but we didn't help them bring the ingredients to cook. Meaning very simple. This is the last month that they can have their license. If we say no tonight, it's a done deal. Okay? We're putting a lot of emphasis on really things that there's a solution for everything. But if you allow them to come up, I don't care who it is, if the owner of the business live in, India, wherever he may or she may live, if you want a license in the city of Crowley to sell alcohol, you need to be in front of this council, because we are the ones that will make the final decision whether you get it or not. Okay? Let the chief go ahead and do his investigation. Let the chief report to us, his findings. But we still need to get these people in front of us. I was told at the time, you can't do that. Okay? I don't know why not. Okay, because if you're going in the housing industry, you gotta go in front of the board, you know what I'm saying, to get a license. So, only thing I'm trying to reiterate what Rick has said, that from here on out, let each one of the persons that wants a license, a liquor license, come in front of this council and be told what they are expected to do. That's it.
All right. Okay, any further discussion? All right, if we could, Cynthia, amended motion. And finish it. Roll call.
Jeff Bell,
Yes.
Guy Ford,
Yes.
Nick Taylor,
Yes.
Lyle Holden,
Yes.
Vernon Morton,
Yes.
Stephen Primo,
Yes.
Sammy Reggie, Kim Stringfellow,
Yes.
Byron Wilbur.
Yeah.
Let it be known that Mr. Reggie abstained. Okay, it passes, thank you. All right, next, number 4.
A motion was offered by Alderwoman Stringfellow and seconded by myself to deny the recommendation to the full council of the application of K&L Grocery for renewal licenses for 2022 for Class P packaged beer and Class B packaged liquor. The motion carried and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Core, seconded by Ms. Stringfellow. Discussion? Who was first, Mr. Cabell?
Yes, I'd like to ask the chief as to why he did not recommend this.
My reasoning for it was because of, some illegal dice games being played on what we thought was the, property itself. We actually found out through this man that the dice games being played on empty lot next door.
And it,
They were cited, yes,
for those dice games?
yes.
Mr. Vogt? Mr. Vogt?
Sir Chief, K&L was initially recommended for a license. In the first presentation.
No.
Oh, I think it was.
Not K&L. No. I held off on mine.
Okay.
Ms. Stringfellow?
Thank you, Mayor. Could someone possibly copy the ordinance and get them to, and mail them to these, establishments, all of them, or is that, could we do that?
Sorry.
Yes.
You talking about in general, all of the people?
Well, just the ones that are on the, yes.
I'm sure
yeah.
whenever, I can make sure we code enforcement, but I'm sure whenever they were first initially, an application,
For
not
the
a renewal,
license.
not a renewal, for a new license.
Mhm.
I'm sure that was all given, it was all informed.
So what they should expect,
That's correct.
what is expected of them.
And then now it's a renewal that you should just continue to use. This is a renewal.
Let me emphasize again. This is a new license, it's an annual license. It is not a renewal. It's a misnomer to call it renewal, just like it's a misnomer with an election, call it taxes renewal. There's an ending date, a beginning and an ending date. That is the period of the license, January 1 to December 31. It is not renewed. You have to again qualify for it each year. Just like a tax vote. There's another vote on it. This is the vote tonight.
Mr. Cole?
Mr. Reagan, could you, just briefly tell us, or tell the audience about liquor permits, about the requirements that a license or permit holder, the obligations they have to follow state law as well as city ordinance? Because I think there's a misunderstanding about they're being sidetracked about not knowing what they're supposed to be doing with a certain type of licenses. And have
Right,
it clarified.
certainly, license holder, as a permittee, is required to familiarize themselves with the law. Law is present, anybody glad you're looking at the ordinance. In this case, there's a heightened duty and responsibility for that owner. The person who either runs or owns the bar, manager, it is their responsibility to familiarize themselves with all laws that are pertinent to the operation of that business. Any violation of any law, regardless of whether it is related to a liquor violation or not, is cause for a denial of the license, because it relates to the operation of the business, in particular when it becomes a apparent that the operation of the business impairs the property around it and the citizens around it in any fashion whatsoever, too much traffic, somebody's got too good a business, and they can't handle it because they don't have enough space on it, you can simply deny the license because of that. That is a valid grounds for denying the license. There are cases about that. We had a great business going here, but sorry, you don't have enough property to do this kind of stuff with. You don't have enough parking. You don't have enough availability in your building. It's too crowded. You can't do this. You know, that's grounds. It can be as simple as that, but any type of violation that you deem material to the good well-being of the public in general, you can deny this license. It is the responsibility of the bar owner, it is the responsibility of the packaged liquor owner, not to allow on-site drinking, not to allow open container violations. All of those things are incumbent upon them to have a place with beer and to allow people to congregate next door in an adjacent lot where gambling is occurring. That's associated with drinking. I mean, you know, they're pretty not out there just gambling. They're out there with that bottle of booze. You have that type of activity. It's related to that. That's something that's directly contingent upon the operation of a bar or the packaged liquor store. Those are the kinds of things that licenses can be denied for. There also is a mentioned before. During the course of the year, if something happens in Florida, if this gets out of control, you can bring them up on the charges. That's when you have to give them a hearing. To hear the actual evidence is right now, you can take into consideration the information you have, as you have in your observations. That all is part of your duties and obligation in issuing the license. You also sit in a judiciary capacity, instead of the legislative body acting in an administrative capacity, you also act in a judicial capacity when you have to have a hearing to but to remove a license. That is a different aspect. So the chief is law enforcement. He is not judicial. He does not act as a judicial administrator or a judicial functionary. His function is to provide you with information in this regard, and also to enforce the laws. The law enforcement aspect, in this case, is to provide those reports that you've been asking for. Many cities actually have a form which requires, a listing of everything that goes on in adjacent to that property, on that property, what the calls were about, everything is broken down. Chief, you've seen those they're very elaborate reports, they're time consuming, and the chief's right about that. It takes a lot of time for police officers to do all this. You have to have the staff for it, but nevertheless, that's the responsibility of the bar owner or the packaged liquor owner. Be familiar with the laws to make sure that when somebody's ordering, you tell them to move on. Do not stand out in front of my place. Do not open that bottle outside. Do not walk out of my bar with an open container. Do not take a cup outside. You cannot drink out here, prohibited by law. If you do that, I'm gonna call the police. And the fact that there are no complaints is interesting, because you're telling me that in case you've observed drinking on the bar outside. Now, yes, I have seen it myself, and I have seen, and I've been contacted by many people, say, what the hell is going on? These people standing out in the streets drinking, nothing's being done.
Mr. Ray, just real quick, I think it was alluded to that we don't have a criteria that we're following. I'd like to clarify that our criteria is based on the frequency that if you're a bar versus a packaged liquor, we're looking at the frequency of calls in comparison to other establishments like that individual has. So if you're looking at the frequency of complaints for bars, we're looking at bars, how many other bars have the number of complaints, and the frequency of events that the police have to come out. Same thing with packaged liquor stores. We're comparing, if you will, apples to apples, and not just comparing how many complaints gross that Walmart has to maybe a small establishment.
I'm saying that's an appropriate comparison.
Okay, if I may, hold up, this discussion just for a second. I apologize, there was another, speaker card that was filled out under this one, and I did not notice it until now. It's, representing K&L Grocery, Mr., I think, D.U. Nguyen, I think? Nguyen. That's what I said, I think.
Yeah, I got trouble with like K&L and coffee. We have customers hang around and they drinking. But usually the vacant property not belong to my store, and they bring outside and we try to tell them to move, and they put the bar and then hang around to the other property, not my property. And we try to get the bed inside because sometimes the state police and city ask me the west to the other edge. We got to take care inside and also outside. We got to take care both of them, and we have no ticket. And I could always tell customers to move out, and they always go to another property, vacant property, not belong to my store. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Okay, any further discussion? Mr.
Do you know
Primo?
who owns that? I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'm sorry.
Chief, at this time, are you recommending K&L?
Yes, sir, after speaking with officers and also Dan and a couple of other people, discovering that they do ask them to move, and they move to that private lot. And to answer Mr. Ford's question as well, I'm not sure who owns that property. We could probably find it out through the assessor's office.
Typically, what's done, Chief, to ask you about this, you can get the adjacent property owner, if it's a vacant lot, to have an issue, police go out there and tell them, listen, you can't trespass here.
Right.
You consider the other property owner. Steph, you recall that we did this on West Hudson with, was the other establishment that y'all had a hearing on a while back? Can't remember the bar owner's name. Okay.
On West Hudson?
Yeah,
OT Talk.
yeah, we'll turn this, place there. When he was at, he had that bar, before you get to, Christian Care.
Oh, yeah, that was many years ago.
Yeah, many years ago.
Yeah, okay.
We got that resolved because we got the adjacent property owner said, stay off my property.
Exactly, yeah, the house next door.
We achieved to assist Mr. Wynn with that. I think that would go a long way to, being able to be able to enforce it and say, hey, there's no permission here for loitering and drinking or gambling. You're getting decided.
All right. Any further discussion? Ms. Stringfellow?
Thank you, Mayor. So Chief, you're changing your mind on K&L, because you said earlier you didn't approve them.
Well, and my disapproval was the loitering and the dice games, which we had,
So just in this short time you've been here, you changed your mind?
well, I've been given information prior, which I also sent to you
Well, no,
via email.
I know, but didn't you ask him, Alderman Cabell, if he, or someone asked if you approved K&L?
At the beginning, I did not because of those issues with the information came forward, which I forwarded to each council person
Right.
today, other than Mr. Martin's coming back, undeliverable, but,
Okay,
having
I'm
spoken
sorry
with him.
if I'm mistaken, but I thought earlier you said no, but that's, I'm mistaken.
Chief, with the additional information that you've been provided, do you feel that this gentleman's plan of action or working together with him will alleviate?
I absolutely think working with him, we can be able to, because again, you'll have complaints on there, because there was a couple of shootings around that area, but it wasn't from their business. It wasn't someone at their business. Their biggest thing was one thing that the council has brought up, people loitering and people, playing dice, which we've seen in different ways. So that was my concerns with it. But after speaking with Mr. Dan, who is friends with the owners of K&L, or the managers, I'm sorry, and also speaking with some of the officers, that it is taking place not on their property, but on the side.
All right, is a motion? You have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Hearing the additional information, I'd like to amend my motion to approve this application.
Amended motion by Mr. Cord to approve it, seconded by Mr. Woodridge. All in favor? Discussion, yes, I'm sorry. No discussion, okay? Roll call, please.
Jeff Bell,
Yes.
Brian Ford,
Yes.
Clint Fredo,
Yes.
Lyle Coleman,
Yes.
Vernon Martin,
Yes.
Stephen Primo,
Yes.
Ken Stringfellow,
No.
Byron Woolridge,
Yeah.
and Sammy Reggie. One no.
Okay, 107 misses, thus pass, and let it be known, Mr. Reddy did abstain. The next, number 5, please.
You got any speakers before in 5 minutes?
We're done. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. The next one is, Mr. Chad Monta. So we were done with the non-speaker cards, but Mr. Chad, yeah.
Good evening. So I emailed each one of you, what our changes are. I've spoken with all of you who wish to speak with me. And, obviously we've always worked really good with the police department. Our police officers, since the day I opened, were always invited to come by and grab a beverage without alcohol in it, obviously, because we like to see them around. Our hopes was that would deter troubles and stuff. I'll just go over the list of things that I emailed each one of you. Like I said, we've all actually spoken before this meeting, whether it be last week or between last week and this week. We are working with the police department even farther to implement a plan, and obviously we are open to do anything that we can to deter any troubles. We don't want to see any trouble, even more so than this council. We got 16 security cameras around the bar. There's 8 inside and 8 outside, and that historically has been and always will be available to the police department at any time they request it. I've spoken with the police chief and multiple police officers, and they all, their answer to me was, Chad, it is an enforcement issue. With all of these establishments, it's an enforcement issue. It falls back on us, but we don't always have the manpower to deal with and enforce all of these laws as they should be at some of these establishments. We have employed security to help deter, hopefully deter, any outside drinks and prevent customers from re-entering with drinks. We've always prevented customers from re-entering with drinks. When they come, they'll leave, they'll go to the bars, they'll come back with a drink. We don't let them come back with a drink. But I've also hired police officers, uniformed police officers on Friday nights and Saturday nights to work security in a uniform, in a police car, parked in the front of the bar. until 2:30 in the morning. So I'm not having them, leave at 2. I want them there until 2:30, which helps us get the crowd on their way and going home, wherever they may be. And also gives a little security for the bartenders as well at night also. But I am paying a police officer, our uniformed police officers on Friday nights and Saturday nights, going forward. That started this past weekend. I have, like I said, I've actually, opened communications. I mean, it should have always been open with the council. I'm welcome to hear any concerns or anything going forward. If there's, something that you see that we need to, put a hammer down on, we'll be happy to do so, to make those changes going forward. I have hired, people in the past. I don't do it anymore because the crowds are not there anymore, but I was hiring, some people to clean up the parking lot from, and the street from Parkinson all the way to, G, on First Street, because of the large crowds that were hanging out in the bank parking lot and stuff. So, in the event that becomes an issue again, I'll be happy to hire, an employee, or someone to, clean up that parking lot and the area also. I'll be happy to answer any questions, any other concerns. I have, brightened the lights out there. I didn't notice yet, it was either gonna be today or tomorrow. Clico is changing. I had 2 floodlights, that I had installed a few years back. One on the post, on the utility pole on the front of the bar, shining down on the street and the parking area across the street, and one on the, utility pole shining on the building and the parking lot, the bank's parking lot on the side of the bar. Those were 250 watt, sodium, high pressure sodium, and, I, paying Clico to come out and put some 400 watt LED lights up there to also increase the lighting out there also.
Okay, Mr. Chad, I apologize, your time's up, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay.
Yes, I just want to, thank you, Chad, for coming and presenting your plan of action. And I also want to confirm for the council members that I was out there Friday night, after 10:30, till probably 1 a.m. Saw the officer there on Friday night, spoke to him about, how he handled certain situations there to keep everyone in compliance. And, also I spoke to the officer who was there Saturday night, from 10:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. and had good reports from them. So, what you're doing is exactly what, we need to see, as a city, and you complying with, the licensing and ordinance.
I appreciate it. I'll tell you, one of the next weekend, one of the officers called me and asked me if I wanted him in, it's gonna be a detective on one of the nights, and he asked me if I wanted him in uniform or more professional. And I said, uniform with a marked unit, please. I mean, that's the whole point of having them there. I'd rather them, so we have to run off, underage all the time. And I think this is also gonna help us with controlling that also. Our hopes is that they won't even show up, to have to run off.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Trinko.
Thank you, and I would like to echo Alderman Ford's sentiment regarding your plan of action.
Yes, ma'am.
And I spoke to you on the phone, and thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think if nothing else, this just kind of brings some awareness to the problem. And I agree with Mr. Kruger, we do have a problem with our blight, and we are up here all the time talking about that, and we would like to speed that process up as well. But I guess my main question from you is, I know you had there were 2 shootings that weren't in your bar, but they were around your bar.
Yes, ma'am.
And you did buy a wand.
Most important point, and I forgot to mention.
You bought a wand.
I did buy a metal detector.
Right, okay. And you just did that recently?
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's one good thing about all of this coming out is that, you know, you may not have done that had we not.
Sure, yeah, I mean, that's
brought
just
this up,
something that
you
we
know.
never.
So, right, so unfortunately, it is, you know, it is what it is, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cavett?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement. The main priority of government at any level is public safety. A liquor license is a privilege that comes with great responsibility. The law charges this board on an annual basis as a means of public safety to review and approve those applicants who have lived up to these responsibilities. It is our duty not only to scrutinize those applicants who have failed this requirement, but to see that such applicants are quashed. In a 5-month period, not once, not twice, but 3 times, we know of loaded weapons being in the city bar. 2 times shootings arose outside the bar. 1 whereby 4 people were shot. To overlook and not put into place corrective actions after the first incident, in my opinion, shows little regard for public safety and the defaulting of the responsibility of one's license. As the argument for shooting happening outside the bar shows complete reflection that in both situations the culprits were in the bar with a loaded weapon. Just thankfully the shooting did not start inside. Had there been a corrective action as to who enters and scanning for weapons, there would have been a good chance neither shooting would have occurred. As to the argument that both shooters were from out of town only strengthens the counter argument that this bar has attracted a culture where it is known not only in Crowley but outlying areas as a place where one can come and cause problems. By the establishment of simple corrective action, a more peaceful and orderly clientele would have been attracted. This is not to be mistaken for those who patronize this bar for many years as a place of conversation and good cheer. There's been much discussion about cleaning up our city so to make it more attractive for business and people to live and visit. Incidents like these are exactly the opposite of what attracts businesses and people. There are those that are concerned with one, but as a board of aldermen, we must be concerned with the whole and consider that what these incidents have cost others who have kept public safety a priority. Lastly, I wanted to be known that 2 weeks ago I did speak with Mr. Monso about this issue and expressed to him that I felt it would extremely assist his cause if he came to last week's committee meeting with a sense of contrition and active responsibility that comes with a liquor license. I expressed to him the importance of having a detailed corrective action plan then, describing how he would plan to change the culture in his place to that which his patrons and city will view as having public safety as a top priority. Mr. Monso did come to the committee meeting, but did not have that plan. Instead, Mr. Monso deflected himself from accountability. It was not until an email from Mr. Monso sent this last Monday at 9:58 p.m. to the Board of Aldermen that we received anything close to such a plan. This is not a proactive approach to a public safety issue. This is not a timely action. I was hoping from someone who is vying to gain favorable recommendation from the Public Safety Committee and ultimately this Board of Aldermen. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gore, number 5. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Red.
I had a couple of questions for Chief, if I could real quick.
Yes.
I guess on the issue with, I wrote a few questions down in case we had something like this that came up about hiring police officers. I guess the first thing would be, did you describe the process of hiring off-duty officers for security detail?
Actually, the business approaches either myself or one of the captains requesting that. We basically put it out for whichever officers may be off duty who would like to work that.
So these questions might be kind of weird for the
That's fine.
What is the benefit to the citizens of having an off-duty police officer posted outside?
One of the biggest benefits, and that's what we had with recently another organization, is they were debating on police officers versus, security. Police officers in the city of Crowley, post-certified police officers, while in our reserves too, have the power of arrest to be able to handle those things. So if something does take place in one of those establishments, they have the power to take care of that situation right there. If an arrest is needed, so it is to be done. If a citation needs to be issued, it can be done on premises. If they need to be removed or banned, they can do it on premises as well.
Okay, that follows into my next one. Like, what role do off-duty police officers have in enforcing laws regarding alcohol sales and consumption? So that falls into that. Can you tell me the process of enforcing laws regarding alcohol sales and consumption?
Can you be a little bit more specific?
Well, if you have like an off-duty officer
Oh.
I guess they'd be outside, so.
Yes, most of the time they are outside. They're kind of watching the crowds. They're also doing security as far as making sure vehicles are not broken into, making sure, vehicles are safe. They mainly remain outside. Most of the time they probably will not enter unless they're asked by the management or owners of the establishment.
Sure. Since Chad just started, it's not gonna really go toward him, but I know there's been other places that have. Do you find more or less violations with establishments they're paying for security officers? Does it help, I guess, would be the word.
I think it helps as a deterrent, as Mr. Marshall was saying earlier, that it may keep some of those underagers out if they know the police are there. They're not gonna attempt to enter the business.
Makes sense. If an officer was paid by an establishment and to be found to be in violation of the law, what impact would that have on that particular officer?
If they were found to, if they were working that detail and there was something clear cut that they would not, they could possibly face criminal charges.
Okay. So would you say that there is a correlation between paying an off-duty officer and having less violations?
Well, it's a good, again, it goes to deterrence. A uniformed officer there in a marked police car brings a deterrence of criminal activity. It doesn't bring a deterrence of people, but it brings a deterrence of criminal activity. People might have thought, yeah, I'm gonna walk into the bar and create a big ruckus. If they see an officer standing there, they're gonna think twice before they do such.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I have just one question from Mr. Reagan. I think one of the misconceptions too, especially about downtown establishment owners and those who are city artists, is where the premises is licensed. I know a lot of rumors have gone that out on the sidewalk in front of the building to the street is part of the premises, but could you clarify that there's no curtilage or, there was an effort years ago where the sidewalk area could be considered the premises, but Mr. Ray, could you clarify where the premises ends? As far as I'm aware, it's the front wall of the building. When you exit the door, you're basically on public property.
Basically, that's the case with most downtown establishments because they're built up to the property line. The C4, which is that area, the commercial district allows no setback areas, no setback distances to be fixed for buildings. So buildings that were built right on the property line. You step out of the city bar, and you actually step onto the public sidewalk. There was some discussion about allowing an area in front of these establishments. This has been years ago. There was a great deal of discussion about it, and there was an overwhelming consensus that there should not, that the alcoholic beverage open container ordinance should not be suspended in the area in front of the bar or any area on public sidewalks. And that never passed.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move
All right,
on.
we'll move forward.
Number 5.
Motion was offered by Alderwoman Stringfellow and seconded by myself to deny the recommendation to the full council of the application of City Bar of Crowley for renewal licenses for 2022 for Class A retail beer and Class A retail liquor. The motion carried. Based on the plan of action and corrective measures implemented by the owner, I would like to now move to approve this application.
Offered by Mr. Brewer, seconded by Mr. Krieger. Discussion? Roll call, please. Mr. Martin?
From hearing all of the different narratives that came about, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but if you want to become a bartender, you have to go to a class, correct?
Yes, sir, you do.
Okay. What is the difference that, and Tom, I don't know if it has any bite to it or not, but is there any way that this council can project some type of class for, not only for new entrepreneurs in the liquor industry? Because from what I'm understanding, and I know a few guys in HEF and whatever, and they tell me that things change. you from year to year. Okay? And what it would do also, if this class can be implemented, it would give the bar owners a chance to come in front, whether we bring them in front of the council or we have a class, whatever it may be, whether the class is over here, that they get a chance to say, well, I do understand. I hope you follow me with this, y'all, because basically what I'm saying is, if they come in and wants a liquor license, we'll have, excuse me for using city board's paper, but I'll just flash it. This is the do's and don'ts of getting a liquor license. Okay, do you understand? Give the 2B bar owners, or, I don't know, you just said we can't use renew, whatever it may be, a chance to project their thoughts. If they feel that, well, this shouldn't be there, that shouldn't be there, let's put it on the table. But once again, I had a problem with the fact that everything came in at the last hour over here. You know, if there was a problem, yearly, I mean, somewhere down the line, and the chair made that, suggestion, have it every 6 months. Yes, okay? And the first 6 months are your most crucial months, because those that don't have, or never had a liquor license, you're learning the process, okay? And learning the process, you're doing something that's against the rules and regs that the city of Crowley mandates, well, you'll know it then. Okay, don't wait till December comes and you come up for your life, oh, by the way, man, you made this, that, and that, you know, and we have a problem with this, that, and the other. Okay, I'm glad that everybody has, had a chance to bring in recommendations, and that's basically what I wanted from the beginning. I want to hear everybody's, thoughts and, what they were planning on doing for the process. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Mayor,
The chief had his hand up.
Just a couple of things I'd like to bring up in the argument to the whole situation. The application does say either new or renewal.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it does say new or renewal on it, so that may have to be changed if that's the way of doing it.
I believe the statute, generally, the license is not renewed if they're annual. They're renewed, it's a renewal process. You don't have a process, it's approval or denial. So it's kind of contradictory with what you're doing tonight. The renewal, as Mr. Martin been saying, well, if it's a renewal, why is it just coming here? It's because the law says you have a duty as a board to approve each license.
Right, and the reason that it kind of comes at the last hour is because most of them come in September or October. That's when the renewals come up. And just secondly, and I'm just throwing this out here because I think I'm reiterating everything that council members have said. A lot of the regulations can be found in our Muni Code. Muni Code, yeah. Under alcohol. However, like all the rest of the ordinances, they are terribly behind and need to be updated haltingly and with great fear and trepidation, but they need to be updated in the worst way.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to follow up with Mr. Martin's comment that the Louisiana Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, ATC, does have a poster that is supposed to be in each bar of prohibited acts, and that it states this poster must be posted in plain view of your employees. So it kind of sets several items that are prohibited acts for employees to follow.
Okay.
Or to prevent.
Well, I just think if they would be in front of us, we can go over them line item by line item, and make sure they understand. Because you know it just as well as everybody else. You looking at something on the wall, if you don't have that sense of knowing what it actually means, you can somewhat project that meant. Okay, well, I thought it was such and such. Well, no, it wasn't that, it was something else. But I mean, it just, education to anything is valuable.
Okay. All right, no further discussion. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Jeff Cavell,
No.
Guy Ford,
Yes.
Clint Frazier,
Yes.
Lyle Bowman,
Yes.
Vernon Martin,
Yes.
Stephen Primo,
Yes.
Sammy Reggie, Kim Stringfellow,
No.
Byron Miller,
Yeah.
Susan Rose. 6 yes.
2 noes, 6 yeses, and 1 abstained by Mr. Reggie, let it be known, and it does pass.
Next, the motion was offered by myself and seconded by Alderwoman Stringfellow to recommend a resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Crowley, State of Louisiana, declaring certain law enforcement related items no longer needed for public use and declaring the items as surplus junk equipment, authorizing the sale or donation of said items to another law enforcement agency for law enforcement purposes only, and alternatively authorizing the disposal and destruction of certain law enforcement items declared junk and authorize the sale thereof as scrap metal, providing for other terms and conditions, authorizing the mayor to execute any and all other documents as may be necessary and proper for said transaction, and to provide all matters relative thereto and connection therewith. The motion carried, and I so move.
Offered by Mr. Court, seconded by Mr. Martin. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that does pass. And, also, Mr. Court, we have an amended agenda on this particular
Yes.
committee. And, it's, public safety, an action item, we'll get to the discussion item in just a second. Ms. Stringfellow, I apologize, we'll get to that discussion in just a second. And right now, there's an action item, it's public safety resetting the date of those rules shall follow on December 12th.
Yes, I would.
Sorry, I'm
January
sorry.
12th.
January 12th, apologize.
Yes, I'd like to move that we move those dates to January 12th, 2022.
Offered by Mr. Core, seconded by Mr. Krieger. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
On the non-action items, Chief of Police Jim Broussard presented the monthly department report. Fire Chief Louis Romero was not present to provide the monthly fire department report. Tony Duhon, Code Enforcement Officer, has been out on sick leave and is unable to provide the report.
And before you close, please, we have an item that was amended under animal control, which is the public safety.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I had written it down under public, or buildings, but, I had just learned, last night that, I guess a week ago, that Pasea's is no longer going to be at the animal, shelter, and their contract was over November, mid-November. So they still have animals there, it's full, the animal shelter's full, and they have, dogs outside. So, and, we have some cold days coming. So, they're in need of, volunteers. And of course, if we have any, recommendations on how we can move the dogs out quicker, if you know anything more, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just to bring it up, I know it's discussion, but Ossie has agreed to continue to help until they get all of their animals out, which I think is in the neighborhood of about 17. And they're still assisting us until they agreed to, to stay and help until they get their animals removed. And Ms. Kelly spoke to Cody, said yesterday, the day before, and said that they're working as hard as they can to try to get this get these animals a home. And also, Mr. Reagan is in the process right now of, just to let everyone know, that we are going to start our own, with the City of Crowley, our own adoption agency. Excuse me, I shouldn't have said agency. Our own adoption program, and it's being defined, and we should have that ready by next week.
Okay, good, Mayor. So, because my concern is, that we go back to, what we were before Jose's came on. So
Well, that's
I'm
why-
glad that will take place.
That's why we are working hard to try to come up with this adoption program and making sure that we can find
And
each
in the
other.
meantime, I think, I'd just like to put it out there, if anyone wants to volunteer, they still need
Absolutely.
volunteers. And I think they were asking for some hay for outside, for the kennels outside, so.
And unfortunately, thank you, Ms. Stringfellow, for pointing that out. And unfortunately, you know, the state allows us to be able to do certain things, and that's all we can do. And, you know, if anybody knows anybody who wants to adopt an animal, please feel free to come and get in touch with hospitals. They would love for you to.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, what are we doing with animals that are currently being picked up out of the city? Are those being,
We are, and that's what I'm saying, and once they know, the animals that were picked up by hospitals, that were, given by hospitals, and then, yes, and then we know the animals that we're picking up,
yes.
to be able to separate those, so that when hospitals doesn't have that account responsibility,
Right, and we have enough staff to care for those
Oh, yeah.
dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want, through this transition.
That is correct.
I want to help the suffer.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they're doing a great job.
There's no further action to come before the Public Safety Committee and committee recess.
Thank you very much. Next is public buildings, Mr. Willard.
Public Buildings and Marine, Wednesday, December 1st, 2020, at the council chamber. There was a quorum. On the action items, there was none. On the non-action, there was none. There was no further business for public buildings, so we recess.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Insurance and personnel, Ms. Springfellow.
Thank you, Mayor. The Insurance and Personnel Committee convened Wednesday, December 1st at 4 p.m. in the council chambers. The quorum was present. There were no action items, nor were there any non-action items. There was no other business to come before the Insurance and Personnel Committee, and the committee recessed.
Thank you, Ms. Springfellow. Next, Community and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Reggie.
The Community and Economic Development Committee convened Wednesday, December 1st, 2021, at 4 p.m. in the council chambers. The quorum was present. Under action items, there were none. Under non-action items, I provided reports for tourism, Crowley Main Street, Acadia Parish Chamber of Commerce, and the Crowley Garden Club. There was no further business come before Community and Economic Development Committee, and committee recess.
Thank you, Mr. Reggie. Next is Revenue and Finance, Mr. Cavell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Revenue and Finance Committee convened on Wednesday, December 1, 2021, at 4 p.m. in council chambers. A quorum was present. There were no action items, nor were there any non-action items. There's no other business to come before the Revenue and Finance Committee, and the committee then recessed.
Thank you, Mr. Cavell. Next, Engineers Report, Mr. Bailey.
Nothing further?
Thank you. Next item is number 12, is an ordinance to amend and reenact section 2-6 of the chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Crowley to redefine the boundaries of the 4 wards of the City of Crowley, which are also designated as the voting districts for the dual single-member voting districts of the City of Crowley in accordance with the population established by the 2020 City Census of the U.S. Census Bureau, to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances contrary thereto or in conflict therewith, and to provide all matters relative thereto. As for a motion,
So moved.
offered by Mr. Cavell, seconded by Mr. Core. Discussion? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Cavell?
Yes.
Guy Ford?
Yes.
Robert Aaron?
Yes.
Lyle Overman?
Yes.
Vernon Martin?
Yes.
Stephen Greenmo?
Yes.
Samuel Reggie?
Yes.
Kim Stringfellow?
Yes.
Byron Woolridge?
Yes.
Unanimous, yes, thank you very much. And before I adjourn, I want to extend my, my thanks to the public and to the council for keeping this meeting very, very professional and in an orderly manner. We do appreciate it. As for adjournment, offered by Mr. Core, seconded by Mr. Stringfellow.
voted the first year we were in there. Maybe I was maybe I Great.